Having the technical facility to play octaves well on the guitar is really important. It can be a really effective way to either, double up on a melody or to add texture to a solo. And the subject of today's lesson is a technique that lies behind playing clean octaves. First off, we need to think about where you can play octaves. Let's take the note G and play it in octaves. And there are other ways to play these, but these are the main ways to get first. Off the E and the D string, that's the distance, we've got a fret gap between them. Off the A and the G string, same shape, fret gap between them. So I'm using fingers 1 and 3 for those, and then fingers 1 and 4 because there's a bigger distance, there's a gap of 2 frets in between these. That's on D and B, and then on G and E up here. So you got, that's just finding G's in octaves, and you can move that around the fretboard for others. Move that up 2 frets. You'd have A octaves. Let's go close up to talk about the technique of these. And so here's a close up of the fretting hand when it comes to octaves. So you take any of these shapes that I'm doing. Notice the first finger is not upright. I'm not like that. First finger operates on the pad like that. So I'm playing the note, the lowest note of the octave, with the pad of the finger, not the tip. So if I was on this G octave here, the first finger is applying pressure to the E string, and because I'm playing on the pad, the first finger kind of curls over the other strings. It's not a bar. I'm not applying pressure across 6 strings. It's kind of like that, and as a kind of curl, you see it like that, and it catches the strings beneath. And it definitely catches the one in the middle, the A string. There, so you sort of have to play the note on the E string and then slightly raise the finger up so that you don't get, otherwise you'll get this. You get the note in the middle, we don't want that. But we also don't want the open string or this, or any of the open strings. No ringing strings. You can keep this finger quite upright, that's not going to be a problem. That finger there is also, for me, I suppose it's slightly slanted and it's catching the G string, but I think if it wasn't, the first finger it would take care of it anyway. So that's on strings E and D, so you see there. Now, if I then move a string down, say to the G up here, the same thing applies. The first finger's operating in the same way, but we've got the E string now above us to consider. So what you're going to do is the tip of the index finger is going to rest against the E string. Hopefully you can see that in, maybe slightly out of focus, but hopefully you can see that there. So the tip of the finger here is catching the E string. The first finger is still curled across the strings, not barred, not pushing down, it's only applying pressure to the E string, and it's just resting against the E string and resting on the other strings beneath. So I can play 6 strings with my thumb or a plectrum and only hear 2 notes. So way to check, should have that weird muted sound. Note, muted, note, mute, mute. So that's on E and D, A and G. When we move to D and B, I use my little finger for the high note because it's a bigger stretch. Now this time, the first finger is doing what it was in the previous one. Again, it's on the pad, it's catching the other strings, and it's catching the A string above. The only string I can't account for is this one. So I do, when I'm playing octaves down here, or here as we'll see in a minute, I have to be careful of the E string with my right hand. Again, the angle of the first finger, it's resting against the G. So if you have a look, you can probably see there. So it's all about catching strings, making sure the way you've got the finger, it plays the one note we want. That index is always playing one note, but it rests against the other strings. It doesn't apply pressure, because if you apply pressure you get notes and you'll get other sounds. We don't want that. We only want the 2 notes. So that's, we've had E and D strings, A and G, and we had D and B. Finally, if we go to E and G, this time we've got the problem, same problems that we've got the B string in between this time, And then we've got the D string above. Again, let the index fingertip rest against the D string so you catch that. And then E and A, you could maybe get your thumb over the top, but I think it would restrict your movement up and down the fretboard. So again, in this instance, we want to make sure that we're muting D and B here, and then we don't play the E or the A string with our thumb or plectrum, whatever you're using. So I suppose, so really, when it comes to playing the ones on E and D, you play 2 notes and mute 4 strings. When you do the ones on A and G, you do 2 notes and mute 4 strings. When you do the ones on D and B, you play 2 notes and mute 3 strings, A, G, E. And when you do the ones on the top set, the G and E string, you mute the D and the B string, and you have to just watch the E and the A because they could ring out. You can also do these octaves like this. Or even, oh sorry, that was a hard one. Don't use that one. I use this one sometimes. It's not a shape I've written down, but that's, say, fret 5 on the A string, and then fret 3 on the the B string. That both those notes are D. And you could also do. And this is fret 5 on the D string, fret 3 on the E. But these are the chief shapes, the one I've written out. Those ones. So that's the left hand technique. In terms of right hand technique, you can either play with a thumb, Wes Montgomery style, you know, where I'm actually just strumming all 6 strings. I'm sure those muted strings contribute to the sound, and then you could do it with a plectrum. Personally, I prefer the thumb option. It's nice and dull, and if dull's a good thing to go after, and obviously it's that iconic Wes tone with Octaves, who, you know, really contributed so much to this area of guitar. Practice suggestions. Once you can play them technically and you don't get any open strings ringing, as we talked about earlier, try doing a melody in octaves. If you've got to repeat a melody, like in an AABA form when it comes around again, or the second time you play the head at the end of a tune, it might be nice to put some octaves in for a change of texture, to up the intensity a little bit. So say if we took this opening, I could maybe up here, and it's just going to make it a little fatter, a little bit more interesting. You can try and solo in octaves, and you know, ways to get used to moving around the neck. I think it's good to practice scales and arpeggios and triads in octaves. So if we took an F major scale, that's just going up 1 string set, but I could try and do it across strings. Sorry. Triads. Chords, so 4 notes. And obviously you could listen to loads of Wes Montgomery, but I'm guessing you already do that. So do you find doing octaves difficult? Is it something you've tried before? You may have learnt them before in other styles of guitar. That I certainly didn't come to the studying jazz and then learn about octaves. It was something I did in, I think, rock and blues and stuff. So I was kind of used to it before. And I think in those other styles too, you want to mute all the strings. You don't kind of politely pick 2 strings. Quite a big part of, you know, the rock guitar use them is with strumming, and you know, I'm sure those the muted strings add and contribute to the overall sound. If you missed my last couple videos on jazz guitar technique, on chords and fretting notes, then I'll put those up on the screen for you now. Please leave me a comment, hit that like button, and thank you for joining me. Don't forget you can join me every Wednesday and Saturday for jazz guitar lessons. Until next time, you take care.